The images are indelible for anyone who witnessed them. 25 years ago this weekend, the wall separating East and West Berlin fell. Democracy prevailed over communism. Germany was reunified. And it was at least a symbolic beginning of the end of the 4-decade Cold War. To commemorate this historic event, artists have lined the former border with 8,000 luminous balloons. Sunday night, they will be released into the air at the exact moment peaceful protesters delivered those first blows and the Iron Curtain dividing Europe was lifted. Now there are signs of a new line being drawn. With Russia's annexation of Crimea and aggressive moves in eastern Ukraine, NATO says Russia is the biggest security threat to the West. And the ceasefire, keeping Kiev and pro-Russian separatists from sliding into all-out war, hangs by a thread.
Russia's actions in Ukraine are in breach of international law. They have severely damaged trust, and they pose a major challenge to our Euro-Atlantic security. Recently, we have also seen Russian troops moving closer to the border with Ukraine.
Today, Ukraine said 32 Russian tanks and 30 trucks have crossed onto its soil. Further evidence the truce may be over. The last word goes to Conrad Black. So we could start, of course, with all these very worrying developments, but I wanted to ask you, first of all, just 25 years ago, the wall came down. Where were you? What were you doing? What was your perspective at the time?
Well, I was in London, and I was watching it only one time anyway. And what struck me most was, the Haydn's old anthem for Germany, which used to be Deutschland über alles, Germany overall. They now have this extraordinarily benign wording to the same splendid music. It's all about unity and freedom and brotherhood and so forth. And they were singing these new words, obviously not the old anthem from Bismarck's time to Hitler's time, and it was as you've described it. It was an unforgettable thing.
Absolutely. I mean, at the time people were so hopeful, and now with everything that's happening, even Mikhail Gorbachev, of course, he's coming into Germany for festivities this weekend to commemorate the event. 83 years old, and he was quoted saying, we wasted the chances that the end of the Cold War presented. Do you think that's true?
No, and in fairness, I understand why he's embittered, but he's apt to criticize those who followed him, isn't he? I mean, that's not in itself surprising. But I would say not. I mean, I'm older than you, but those my age remember when there was great concern about the possibility of a nuclear war between the superpowers, or the great powers, including the French and the British as nuclear powers. And that fear has retreated and receded a great deal. So I think, and we can't forget that comparative democracy and the free market system expanded very greatly. I mean, the fact is, the United States defined this containment doctrine, and they administered it throughout the Cold War, and their one rival simply disintegrated, fell like a souffle, imploded without a shot being exchanged between the USSR and the USA. And it was a great thing for the West. It was the triumph of the Western world, but not in a chauvinistic or belligerent way.
Now, they're saying also that Gorbachev is going to use this opportunity this weekend to speak in favor of Putin and his policies and so forth. I mean, relations are at a new low at this point, though.
Between Russia and the West? They're, well, not an absolute all-time low, but at a low point in recent years, yes, I would say so.
So now some people, though, are saying this, we can't call this sort of the new Cold War 2.0.
Like, Russia can't frighten us the way they used to. It's a basket case. It's not a rich country, and it only has half the people that the Soviet Union had. They lost 14 republics in that,
Well, then what do you make of what's happening right now in Ukraine? This news that we were just discussing of tanks coming across the border, trucks, so forth?
I have no standing to comment on that. Obviously, I wouldn't know, and I wouldn't necessarily believe it because the government in Kiev says it, but I wouldn't be surprised because I don't think Putin is trustworthy. But on the other hand, the Saudi reduction of the oil price is putting a real rod on the back of the Russians and the Iranians, which is the intention of the Saudi government. And I don't think Russia is in any position to become as territorially acquisitive as it did with the Crimea. Now, I think we have the Saudis to thank for that. I think NATO has just been a talking shop. It's been completely ineffectual. Now, I'm rather a respecter of Chancellor Merkel, the German leader. I'm really quite disappointed that she hasn't done anything to reduce German imports of natural gas from Russia. And there are alternate sources, including Canada.
You know, we're starting off here talking about the wall coming down, but I don't know whether you saw the other day that apparently Ukraine is talking about building a new wall between it and Russia.
That at least would be on a national border. I mean, the problem, apart from anything else, was a division of Germany. And you really shouldn't divide countries like that. You know, it's been reunited, as eventually Korea will be.
Yes. Well, but just the same, the fact that, you know, could we be there again, that people are trying to build a wall with watchtowers?
They never work. The Great Wall of China, the Maginot Line, the Berlin Wall, they never work. So why bother doing it?
All right, so let's talk about something of high interest here in Canada. Of course, one of the results out of the midterm elections in the U.S. is Keystone XL. Many positive comments being made. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I assume that they're being made by victorious Republicans, but it takes both parties to do it. And if the president doesn't change his mind, it's not going to happen. The other thing is, I don't want to be negative, but we don't know how long this drive to reduce the oil price is going to go on and how low the price will go. But we're not that far off the point where you have to question the economics of the whole thing from a tar sand standpoint, not traditional type of petroleum.
Absolutely, but you know the interesting thing is, you know, even beyond the oil supply and so forth, it's just jobs, right? I mean, one of the very first things that this next Senate Majority Leader said was, you know, the employment figures connected with Keystone are absolutely outstanding. We just have to get it going. So I mean, even beyond, you know, the price of oil, they're still very keen in the U.S. at this point.
Yeah, and
job creation.
he's a senator from Kentucky, and I think it would be, as I understand it, would be a benefit to that state too. But he will be a much easier person to deal with than Reid was. I found Reid a completely implausible character in that role.
Now, you mentioned, of course, that whatever the Republicans want to do, Obama, of course, has his veto. How do you see the next couple of years
You
playing
can
out,
override a veto, but I doubt that there would be an ability to do that.
But how do you see this working? I mean, of course, people are saying, oh, lame duck presidency from here on in. But, you know, there's also an opportunity to work together in some way. How optimistic are you that we'd see anything like that?
Not extremely. I think that you could do it. Yes, of course you can. I mean, if everybody's reasonable, then you could get a lot done in 2 years. But in general, it doesn't usually happen. I mean, even much more distinguished presidents than Obama have had difficulty getting much done in the last 2 years. President Eisenhower did, President Reagan did, and they were respected, popular presidents.
There was a statement out of the White House today saying that they would consider looking at a bill that would allow constructions to start on Keystone.
Look, I have no standing to comment on what the President of the U.S. might do, but it is possible, but it will take a certain change of perspective on his part, I think.
And you'd like to see that happen?
I would, yeah. Like, I always hope that whoever the president is of the U.S. does well, and I don't think this man has been terribly successful, but I wish the holder of the office well, whoever it is.